Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to season 5, episode 16 of Oz Media's Motivate Me 313 podcast. Looking for another great and informative episode today. First and foremost, let me go ahead and introduce who's in the building today. Starting off with little big bro Yusuf T in the back on the ones and twos, as always. To the right of me, we have Abdulaziz.
Hello, everyone.
To the left of me, we have Abdulhamid. And of course, you got myself, Omar T. I'll be hosting the show today. And today's title is 1 year Later, What Really Happened to Syria After Assad's Fell. Okay? So we're going to make sure that we discuss everything that's been going on in Syria 1 year later. Looking forward to this conversation. Kick back, listen to what's going on. They're going to bring you facts. They're going to bring you information that you may have heard or you may have not heard before. But that's the whole point of this show, for you to kick back and enjoy and listen and hopefully learn something from this episode. Be sure to follow us on all of our socials. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Apple and Spotify podcasts, all under Oz Media. You can find all those platforms on our website, www.ozmedia313.com. Shout out to the sponsors of this show: Juicebox, Holy Bowly, Wingfellas, Beit El Mocha, Chillbox, Melike Kebab, Hanley International Academy, The Family Doc, GE Preparatory Academy, and Royal Kebab. Yusuf, let's go ahead and give a shout out to our good friends over there at Melike Kebab, and then we're going to officially get the show rolling. Shout out to Malik El Kebab. Melike Kebab has become noted as one of the best Middle Eastern restaurants in the Metro Detroit area. The restaurant has become a popular destination for visitors and is always full of satisfied locals who are proud to invite their guests to taste real Middle Eastern food. With options like shish platters, shawarma plates, shawarma sandwiches, lamb chops, fettush, and tabbouleh salads, you can never go wrong when you choose to eat at Melike Kebab. They currently have 3 locations: West Dearborn, Taylor, and Trenton. Be sure to stop by Melike Kebab to satisfy all of your Middle Eastern cravings. You can also visit them at their website, melikkebab.com. All right, so like I said, today we're here to talk about Syria 1 year later after Bashar al-Assad's fall. So before we even discuss that situation, let's go ahead and get to know who is on the show today. And I'm looking at you, Abdulaziz, if you don't mind starting. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? What do you do? What are you pursuing in your, inshallah, college career?
First off, thank you for having us, Omar. Both Abdulhamid and I are so excited to represent SOS and talk about Syria, a beautiful country. My name is Abdulaziz Alawer. I am a senior. I'm a bioengineering senior at UFM Dearborn, and I plan on pursuing a bioengineering career after I graduate, inshallah, this winter.
Inshallah. And you mentioned SOS. Can you tell people at home what is SOS and what's it all about?
So SOS is Students Organized for Syria. It's an apolitical, non-religious student organization that aims to promote and raise awareness about what's going on in Syria. We raise events, we do fundraisers, and we promote awareness and educational content to make the public aware of what's going on in Syria.
I just want to let people know at home that they do such an amazing job with their events. I've been to a couple of them. Ramadan events be A1, so look out for those. I'm sure they're starting to already think about those and getting ready for that. So shout out to SOS. And Abdulhamid, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and kind of what you do?
Of course, thank you so much for having me, Omar. So my name is Abdulhamid Albazo. I am a biological sciences major at University of Michigan Dearborn. I am the vice president of this org, Students Organized for Syria. And inshallah, I'll be pursuing, I'm doing a pre-medical pre-major right now at U of M Dearborn. And inshallah, within the next couple years, I'll be applying to med school, inshallah.
Inshallah. And I'm about to do a little shameless plug as well, because I was talking about the charity game. I forgot to mention it's going to be held at U of M Dearborn, inshallah, February 6th. So inshallah, the whole goal is to get even the students that go to that school to show up. All right. But let's focus on Syria. So, before we talk about what's happening now, we have to talk about the history.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's start off with you, Abdulaziz. Can you tell me what was Syria like before Bashar al-Assad?
So I think the best starting point to talk about is during the World War I and after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. In 1916, France and Britain signed the Sykes-Picot Agreement, where they wanted to divide the Arab world France agreed to take control of Syria and Lebanon, whereas Britain agreed to take control of Iraq and Jordan. And it was during that period of time that the French Mandate started, and it lasted from 1920 up until 1946. The word mandate pretty much means that France is going to help Syria economically, and it's going to help Syria gain independence. But that was just, what was said publicly, because in reality, Syria was treated as a colony, and it was only used for French benefit. And during that time, from 1920 to 1946, a lot of wars were broke out between the French and the Syrian people. A lot of dissent was crushed. The French ruled by force, and that was the starting point of our fight for democracy. And after the Second World War, after it ended, the United Nations forced or pressured France to leave Syria. And on April 17, 1946, Syria officially gained independence, and the Syrian Arab Republic was formed. And the first democratically elected president, Shukri al-Quwatli, was the first president of Syria, and his presidency lasted from 1946 up until 1949, when he was overthrown and a coup happened and was perpetrated by Hosni Zaim. And from that point in time, from 1949, the coup occurred in 1949, up until 1958, that period of time was characterized by great instability. 5 coups happened, 3 coups happened in the same year in 1949. And so during that period of time, Syria was very unstable. It went from being a stable democratic country to being a country that was constantly overthrown every couple of years, every couple of months, only for like personal gains. One government comes, the other overthrows the previous one, and it was just an endless cycle of instability. And then in 1958, from that moment, from like 1949 up until 1958, the Ba'ath Party rose and gained prominence. And the Ba'ath Party is the party that was affiliated by Hafiz al-Assad and Bashar al-Assad. And it was that during that period of time that it gained prominence. And then in 1958, the United Arab Republic, which was a union between Egypt and Syria, was formed, and it lasted only 3 years, from 1958 up until 1961. And it was overthrown in 1961 because even though it was a union, in reality, power was centralized in Egypt. Like Cairo was the sole ruler of this union, and all of the laws, all of the ruling came from Cairo and not Damascus. And Syrians felt like they were marginalized. And moreover, during that period of time, Egypt was under the leadership of Jamal Abdel Nasser. And during that period of time, those 3 years, he dissolved all of the political parties. And if we were to compare it to the previous years prior to 1958, Syria was a democratic country. Even though it was unstable, it had a lot of political parties. Democracy was a thing. And that was also one of the concepts that we ingrained as Syrians, is that our ancestors have always longed for freedom. They've always longed for democracy. So that theme and that concept was always ingrained with us. And because Jamal Abdel Nasser dissolved and suspended all of the political parties in Syria, he was overthrown in 1961. But the new government was very weak. The one that overthrew Jamal Abdel Nasser in 1961. And that government was overthrown in 1963. So, like, just 2 years later. And the Ba'ath Party were the ones who overthrew this new government. And it was in 1963 that the Ba'ath Party declared a one state or one party rule. So we can confidently say that 1963 was the beginning of Syria's demise, because the Ba'ath Party controlled the country, and it declared a one-state rule. And to even cause more division and more instability, 3 years later, within the party itself, Hafiz al-Assad and his childhood partner, Salah Hajdi, they also perpetrated an internal coup where they overthrew their own friends within the Ba'ath Party. And that was in 1966. And then 1 year later, the Israeli-Arab war broke out, and the Golan Heights was lost. And Hafiz al-Assad was the Minister of Defense in 1967, and unfortunately, it was given up. Like, there wasn't any resistance. The Syrian army didn't even try to protect it or anything.
What's the reason behind that?
Hafiz al-Assad wanted to come to power, and people usually say, or it was agreed, that Hafiz al-Assad only cared about internal conflict and only cared about rising to power. He didn't care about protecting the borders. He didn't care about unifying the country. The Ba'ath Party as many historians and scholars agree, that it was the party that created this division, and it was the party that created this disunity in Syria. And all he cared about was just rising to power. As three years later, in 1970, Hafiz al-Assad overthrew his childhood friend Salah Jdid on November 16, 1970, and he threw him in prison. And it was in 1970 that Hafiz al-Assad locked the door and successfully secured a dictatorship that was going to last 60 years, from 1970 up until Bashar was overthrown last December. And from 1970 up until 1982, a lot of we can say a lot of injustice happened in Syria, where Hafiz al-Assad crushed dissent, where he banned any religious practices. Like, he would greatly limit women from wearing the niqab. He would greatly scrutinize any person who used to pray Fajr in the mosque or even had a beard. So that started like the rule of the minority over the majority. And then
Bashar, I mean, Hafid al-Assad and even Bashar al-Assad,
Yeah.
they're Muslim, right? Or like claim.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're Muslim Malawi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the.
But they were a
second
minority,
Yeah.
and the minority was ruling the majority.
Okay.
And that was where the injustice was created.
Okay.
And from 1970 up until 1982, those injustices, they kept increasing and increasing. And as I said, he crushed dissent. He only had one party rule. So Hafiz al-Assad ruled by force. He ruled with stone and fire, as they say. And throughout the years, the dissent grew and people demanded freedom. And then in 1982, specifically February 2nd, 1982, our hometowns of Hama suffered one of the most brutal massacres of the previous century, and even one of the worst of, compared to today's day and age. In less than 4 weeks, more than 40,000 people were massacred and killed. And Hama, historically speaking, was a very conservative and religious city, and it was one of the reasons why it was the first target for this regime. Yes. And my dad was 17 at the time, and he witnessed it, and also my mom, she witnessed it. And the destruction that Hama experienced during those four weeks was just unimaginable. A third of the city was completely destroyed, a third was partially destroyed, and a third was untouched. But complete neighborhoods were wiped out, and complete families were also killed. The Ba'ath regime would go as far as seeing women or finding women with like hand jewelry or like earrings, and they would cut the hands off, cut the earrings off, just to rule with fear. And after the 1982 massacre, Hafiz al-Assad pretty much pinned his iron fist, and he made Hama more of a message to all of the other cities, that if you guys were to ever revolt against me, talk against me, demand freedom, demand to just live as a normal human being like all of the other nations, then this will happen to you. And from 1982 up until the revolution in 2011, they ruled with fear. Like, fear was the biggest aspect that let people not revolt, and it prevented them because they were so afraid. Everyone thought to themselves that if we were to revolt, if we were to just even demand freedom or like demand basic human rights, we will become the next Hama. So that was like the mentality behind it. And I can personally verify that because my grandparents, they like used to say that, guys, don't talk about the regime, the walls have ears. So like it went as far as people being very terrified of this regime. And then Hafiz al-Assad passed away in year 2000, and then Bashar al-Assad came. And one of the images of dictatorship that this regime displayed was in the year 2000 when Hafiz passed away. The Syrian constitution mandated that the minimum age of presidency of the president must be at least 40 years, but Bashar was 34. And so what historians say is that they did a constitution plastic surgery, as people call it, and they changed the minimum age to match exactly Bashar's age, and they changed it from 40 to 34 to perfectly match Bashar al-Assad. And then from the year 2000 up until 2011, Bashar went down the same path of his father. But during those years, the Syrian economy was at an all-time low because his cousins, the Makhluf family, they monopolized the whole economy. They controlled the gas sectors, the oil sectors. They controlled the real estate sectors. And funny thing, in Syria we have two telecommunications companies, Syriatel and MTN, and both of them are owned by the same person. So like they created this monopoly, and
Did they get along with Bashar al-Assad?
they did eventually have their own disagreements.
Okay.
But the thing is
At that moment, though, they
no,
were,
yeah, they were together.
oh,
I mean, without Bashar al-Assad, the Makhlouf family would have never been able to amass the amount of wealth that they have today.
Okay.
And one of the most prominent Makhlouf family members is Rami Makhlouf, and his net worth is estimated to be $5 to $10 billion. So it's crazy. But yeah, that's pretty much the history
Leading up to the
from 1920 or actually 1916 up until 2011 when the revolution started.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add on to that? Or
Yeah, I just want to say, like, what we saw earlier with this trend of coups and overthrowing the government, it just creates so much chaos, and it creates like a power vacuum. And you will see later on, even in 2024, when when the liberation happened, something like that even like began to start. And we will touch on that later.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like a domino effect where like the more corrupt a government is, the more the people want to overthrow it, and the more overthrowing and coups that happen, the more chaos that happens. And so we literally see, like Abdulaziz said, in the earlier 1950s, 60s, there was like a coup and a new government, new leadership every like few months, every couple years even. And yeah, we could obviously, that's just like what creates like chaos, and that's how like it started pretty much in the beginning.
No, I can completely understand why that's the case. Just judging. I mean, any company. I mean, think of a country like a company, for example. Like you keep having new owners, new people running the company. It's just never going to be. It's just going to be constant chaos.
Yeah.
and never stable.
And the problem is it's a country.
This is the whole country.
And this is not to say that
whole country.
like we're against overthrowing the government. Like
As
obviously,
long as the right situation.
of course, obviously, if there's a leader who's corrupt, who's been ruling with force, who's been committing massacres for decades, obviously he needs to get off the throne.
Right.
But a lot of the coups in the beginning that did happen were simply because this military leader just wanted power, or this guy just wanted to get more power, or this guy saw a chance where he can sit on top and control the whole government.
So I'm assuming when you say, like, for example, when I asked the question of what prompted the start of a revolution, we're talking about the Arab Revolution in 2011, or are we talking about the takedown of Bashar al-Assad? Which
actually both coincide.
Okay.
Because the Arab Spring, it all started in Tunisia when a guy was having his own little shop. Or actually, it was just a table where he was just selling like his like vegetables and just simple stuff. But the problem, and he was in Tunisia, but the problem is he didn't have a license to open a shop. And so what happened is that the Tunisian police came up to him and they vandalized his items, and they ended up taking it away. And the guy was obviously poor, or like he didn't live in great conditions. And so in protest he set himself on fire and he killed himself. And this prompted a huge response from all of the different populations across the Arab world. And it spread like wildfire from Tunisia, from Libya, from Egypt, from Syria. And it eventually reached Syria. And it manifested when a bunch of kids in the city of Dar'a, they spray painted on the wall "Jacket Doria Doctor," which means "Your turn has come, doctor." And Bashar al-Assad was a doctor. So it signified that his turn was next. And so what happened is in the city of Dar'a, the local police chief, his name is Atif Najib, who happens to be Bashar's cousin, ended up detaining and arresting all of those kids. And when the parents of those kids demanded their children, Atif Najib literally said, and I'm quoting him verbatim, go make new children. So he literally told them, like, forget them, go make new children. They're gone.
And an example of that is Hamza Khatib.
Hamza al-Khatib, yeah.
Everyone knows about him. He was just a kid who was detained. I think, how old was he?
About 14.
Yeah, something like that. He was detained by the regime army, and he was, obviously there's even like picture evidence that we can show, and he was beaten tortured,
His genitals were
yeah,
mutilated.
mutilated very
and
badly, and then obviously killed and
Cold
sent
blood.
back to his parents. That's just one example of like
Mm.
doing that to a child, and that's like kind of one of the main things that like started the revolution. Okay, like what is going on? Why is this? Because it didn't just start from like, oh, like let's take up arms and overthrow the government. That's not how it started. Every Almost every revolution starts with peaceful protests, and then it just like escalates
Mhm.
and then it escalates. And I can even have like I can give you personal experience that I had with. Obviously, I was like a child when 2011. I was like what, like 5 6 years old or something. But I do remember going to like Salat al-Jama'ah at the masjid, and then like as soon as the salah is over, everyone from the masjid goes outside and just like chants Allahu Akbar, chants like, freedom, everything like that. Very peaceful, no weapons, no, not even a rock in hand, right? And then time by time, the army started showing up. Soldiers would like disband the protest, and at first they were just like, okay, like everyone go home, whatever. Then they started like firing in the air, you know, like shooting their AKs in the air just to like scare the protesters. Then they started like shooting at the feet. Slowly you can see this
Yeah.
trend of like, okay. Then they just like started like killing people, bombings. Even I've experienced a couple too. I'll mention that later. But literally, they would target masjids, they would target mosques where they knew those were like the hot zones for like protests, and they would just drop barrel bombs on innocent people, not a gun or weapon in sight. And obviously, this is how they tried shutting it down. But obviously, as we know, that like will never work. If you're peacefully protesting, you want freedom, you want basic human rights, and you get shot down by extreme violence, by weapons, by bombings. um we as citizens, we're not just gonna be like sit back, oh, like, oh, never mind, like, go have your way, whatever, this is too dangerous. No, obviously it's gonna escalate more, and people would want more freedom, even like with more passion.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. No, great
I
point.
just want to touch a little bit on that to just show the world that our protests at the beginning were very peaceful. One of the famous stories is a guy named Ghayath Matar, where he used to organize peaceful protests. And to show the Syrian army that he was truly peaceful, he would send army officers and the Syrian army, he would send them a bottle of water attached with like a flower, just to show them that they wanted basic human rights. And because of this, noble act, the Syrian army couldn't handle it. And so what happened is just a couple of days and weeks after that, they set up an ambush for him and his friend, where they killed him, they tortured him, and then they threw his body in his town, and it sparked like international solidarity, where ambassadors from different parts of the world attended his funeral. So our protests at the beginning were very peaceful. All we demanded was just basic human rights, a little bit of dignity, a little bit of freedom, and we were met with excessive violence.
There's a famous line, kill him with kindness.
Mhm.
And
That was
that's exactly
actually
what.
they called him Little Gandhi for that.
Really?
They called him they call him Little Gandhi for like that noble act.
Yeah. So, I'm hearing all this. So much to unwrap here.
Mhm.
But let's just go on to the next question of if this was all going on. Arab Spring started in 2011. He was, Bashar al-Assad was pushed out of power in 2024. Like, how was he able to stay in power for so long if so many people were not happy with his
Mm.
his ruling, or
Yeah,
whose
of course.
the way he
So
ruled?
there are two things I want to mention. I'll have Abdulaziz mention the Caesar Act later on. But first, obviously, no matter how many people want you off, no matter how many of the citizens, how much of the majority, even like different sects, not just like Sunnis, even different sects, different people that were oppressed by Bashar, they wanted him off, they wanted him gone, right? But at the end of the day, it's who has the firepower, who has more allies. Obviously, like there was a few like resistance parties, a few like militias here and there, but like Bashar had a lot of a lot of allies. Obviously, he had like Iran and other proxies and other militias that were helping him. He had obviously Russia, which is obviously a huge like ally to have on your side. And Russia was like, even Syria when I was there, even they were very like famous for just their fighter jets and bombing like randomly. And obviously in wars, like it's known, like if you have the air, if you have the control of the air,
Mm.
you're winning
If
no
you
matter
control
what.
the air, you control the ground.
Yeah, exactly. And so they even implemented this tactic of like scorched earth, where Russia bombers and fighter jets would just like blow up everything in a town, or if they knew that there was a threat somewhere, they would just like carpet bomb the whole region with absolutely no regard to citizen lives or human lives, children, women, elderly, doesn't matter. So obviously a lot of those allies supporting Bashar, and for their own benefits as well. Obviously we know how rich in Syria, and like how great of a region Syria is to take control of, and all these different proxies, all these different militaries and allies weren't really supporting Bashar because they liked him.
Mm.
He was more of a puppet. And we will see later on why he fell in 2024 because of that reason exactly, when he did lose his allies. And yeah, so I'm gonna have Abdulaziz talk about the
Yeah, I
Caesar
ju-
Act, which was also another
I
huge
just
thing.
want to add 2 points to what Abdulhamid said. Is that when Russia got involved in September of 2015, they started utilizing the barrel bombs. And as he said, barrel bombs were so chaotic, so random. So like usually when a war breaks out between two sides, they usually target the military sites and they have precise attacks. But the thing with the barrel bombs is that they're so chaotic. Like they're not precise at all. If you drop a barrel bomb on a place, then within like 200, 300 meters or even more, the whole area is gonna be under threat. So if you drop a barrel bomb, it's more than likely that you're gonna attack, kill children, kill innocent people, destroy building. I mean, more than 50% of Syria's infrastructure is destroyed, completely destroyed because of the barrel bombs. Um, and also, as he said, Russia didn't love Bashar al-Assad. Like he was a means to an end. And Syria, as we'll talk later, is such a strategic place in the world. It's in the heart of the world, and Russia has two military bases in Syria, and they're usually based on the coast. And so the coast opens up Syria to pretty much the whole Middle East. And so Russia's presence in Syria acts as its presence throughout the Middle East. So when Russia is in Syria, it means that it's present in the Middle East. And so without Syria, Russia isn't present in the Middle East. And so they just looked at Bashar as a means to an end.
A couple questions off of that, right? And so this may be obvious, but why Syria? Why, in terms of like, why was Russia happy to like, and are they still a part of? Are they still based in Syria? And do you ever see them getting out of Syria?
Okay, so currently, the current situation, as we'll talk later, we're in the state of rebuilding Syria. Syria right now is a peaceful country. Look, we've stated this, the Syrian government has stated this time and time again. We're a peaceful country, we don't want problems with anyone. And as long as there are mutual benefits between Syria and whatever country it is, even if it's Russia, we're going to work on it. Even if it's Iran, whatever country it may be, if there are mutual benefits that are going to benefit the people, we're gonna have and establish diplomatic relations. And currently, so far, the bases are still there. And to answer your question of why, as we said, Syria is a strategic place, like one of the most strategic places in the world. It's literally in the heart of the world. And Russia has a base called the Hmeimin base, which is in the coastal areas of Latakia. And as I said, the presence of Russia there means that it's present in the Middle East. So, like, let's say Russia was kicked out of Syria, then Russia would have absolutely no presence in the Middle East. And so the way it looks at it is that Syria is its key to the Middle East. Without Syria, there is no Russia in the Middle East.
All right. I mean, I figured I asked that question because I thought there might even be resources that they're looking for. They're trying to.
Well, yeah, of course, that's another thing. Obviously,
another
there's
thing
a lot
too.
of resources.
But not, I mean, Russia obviously does exploit our resources,
Yeah.
but also the United States backed up certain groups, certain forces in the northeast region of Syria where they exploited our gas and our oil and our phosphate reservoirs.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna give you guys a quick break, okay? Because so far so great. I love how you guys broke down leading up to this point and now we're gonna start talking about the fall of Assad and what's the current state of Syria and all that other stuff. So let me just go ahead and give a shout out to our next sponsor. Let's go ahead and give a shout out to the Family Doc Yusuf, and then we'll keep things rolling. Shout out to Dr. Ali and the Family Doc. The Family Doc, founded in 2021. The Family Doc Clinic and Urgent Care provides comprehensive primary and urgent care services with a patient-centered approach. Their competitive advantage lies in delivering high-quality, flexible care with same-day appointments and walk-in options. So if you twisted your ankle while playing basketball, go to the Family Doc. Your baby has got a cold and you have no scheduled appointment? Go to the Family Doc. With 3 locations in Dearborn Heights, Hamtramck, and Allen Park, the Family Doc team can take care of you anywhere and anytime. So make sure you stop by the Family Doc, where they strive to make healthcare seamless, stress-free, and accessible when patients require it the most. As we continue, I do want to give a shout out to Reem. I appreciate Reem. She actually came on our show. I believe I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago. Did a great job, talking about Syria and the SOS program.
She's the president.
Yeah, and so and I think we had Bazet on the show too, on the show as well. I believe. And you're looking at me like I'm confused. I don't know. Okay, I could be.
You said Bassett?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
I think Yusuf also.
yeah, I believe we had one more person, and so shout out to Reem, and then she was gonna come on this show, but she it was like these guys right here are gonna do an amazing job, and so Abdulhamid and Abdulaziz, thank you guys for coming on,
and I
appreciate you guys. So now we're at the turning point that led to the fall of Assad. All right, you guys kind of touched on it, but talk to us. What kind of what was the big major factors that led to the fall?
Okay, so we talked about his great allies, obviously, and so his strong allies that fought the resistance constantly for 14 years. So in 2024, obviously, the resistance saw a chance. I want to say a once in a lifetime chance, where, as we might know, like there was a lot of conflicts around the world, the Ukraine and the Russian war, right? So since Russia had a war on its hands for, I think it started like 2020, and for like a few years it's been going on, and they're losing so much of their resources, a lot of firepower, a lot of military, and so I don't think, well, obviously because of what we saw, Russia couldn't really afford to send any more military to fight Bashar's war, right? Because of what they had on their hands, and it was so close to their borders. So in that moment, I think there was one Russian bombing in the liberation in 2024, and I think that was it, because Russia kind of like sat back a little. They were handling their own war, and we saw even the same thing with like the conflicts around the neighboring countries, obviously, that were with Bashar or that were supporting him. We saw Israel kind of like target those countries. We saw like the Iran and Israel conflict. We saw Israel target Lebanon, target Yemen, and all these countries. There was a lot of little militias who were supporting Bashar before for their own benefits, but now that they had their own things to kind of deal with, they just couldn't afford to fight this spontaneous war, this spontaneous like resistance that no one really expected. No one was expecting it was gonna go this fast. No one was expecting for it to even start this early, and so they kind of just seized this opportunity so well, and they just took control of a lot of the major cities. Like we saw Halab fall very quickly. We saw Hama, Homs. Not saying that there wasn't any resistance or conflict or confrontation, and obviously we have to acknowledge all the great lives that were lost and the shuhada, obviously, but it was, I want to say, easier than anyone expected, and it was easier than it would have been a few years ago, where all these allies that Bashar had would have probably came together and bombed and fought back the resistance, as they have been for the past like 14 years.
So the resistance fighters, do you think that this was strategic?
100%. I
Okay.
think we've
Figured.
seen videos of them going online and saying, okay, this was a huge plan. We've been planning this for a while. We were just waiting for the opportunity. Everything was being worked on in secret. Everything, was called غرفة العمليات, where
Operations room.
exactly, where this whole operation took place, and it was led by huge, strategic minds, military people, and obviously they didn't have any fighter jets, they didn't have any helicopters, they didn't have any bombs. They used they used what they had. They used their the small explosives that they had, drones, a lot of drones. We saw a lot of drone warfare, which worked very well in their hands. And yeah, and he just like he was forced to flee at the end. He didn't have anything. And this exact thing shows you how weak the core regime was, and how fragile it is, because as soon as all these proxies left, or I guess dropped back on their support, the regime, Bashar al-Assad himself and his army, they're nothing.
They were so
had
reliant on these other
exactly
people
they
that
had
Of a militia that protected the family rather than an army that protected the
Mhm.
borders.
yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And then obviously, with a regime this fragile at the core of it, it won't last long against a huge resistance that's been being planned for years.
Yeah. And then you
I
wanna
just
add on
want
something?
to
Yeah.
add 2 points prior to this battle that was called Rad al-Udwan, or deterrence of aggression, is that the fall, I would say, in my opinion, started in 2020, but the work behind it started in 2011,
Mm.
where there was a first lieutenant. His name was Farid al-Madhan, and he was a forensic photographer who worked in the Damascus prisons, specifically the Harasta prison. And his job was to take photographs of killed uh, prisoners that were tortured until their death. And all of them were political prisoners, so like it's not like that they were any criminals or anything. They just had their own opinions. They dissented Bashar al-Assad, but all of them were killed between 2011 and 2013. And during that period of time, he smuggled more than 55,000 pictures, and that was like the biggest piece of evidence against Bashar al-Assad. And I could say that this alone was enough to, like, as I'll talk about right now, it crumbled and it isolated and it absolutely destroyed the Assad regime. And after 2013, when he took all of those pictures and he smuggled, he fled Syria, and he went to several countries, France, Germany, Qatar, and also the United States. And he was going through all of those countries to be able to consolidate a lawsuit against this regime, and to expose them for all of their heinous crimes. And eventually, with the help of the Syrian Emergency Task Force, which is one of the greatest nonprofits out there that advocates for the Syrian cause, they were able to grant him a visa to come here to the United States and testify against Congress. And Congress took it upon themselves to also verify those pictures. And after almost a year of verifying, it turns out to be completely authentic pictures. And do you know how lawsuits, they take so long to process and they take so long to come into effect? And then in 2019, the Caesar Act was officially passed, and it was a legislative act that passed through Congress, the House, the Senate, and it was also signed by the president. And then it came into effect in 2020. This Caesar Act was by far the most crushing sanctions that you can ever think of. It was a secondary sanction, which means usually when we're talking about sanctions, sanctions apply to like U.S. companies, where like U.S. companies cannot deal with like this certain party or like this certain country. But this was a secondary sanction, which means that it would also sanction the party that deals with this country. So like you can't deal with it, you can't send money, you can't export, you can't import, and also one of the sections of this act was the prevention of the engineering section and the reconstruction section. Because Bashar al-Assad, what he did is that he wanted to reconstruct Syria after he destroyed all of it, and he wanted to make it a hub for all of the different militias and all of the different foreign fighters that killed the Syrian people. And so the Caesar Act prevented him from reconstructing the country. And because of that, in 2020 and in the later years up until 2024, Syria was almost bankrupt. It was so crushed. The economy was at an all-time low. The Syrian currency plummeted. Like it was by far one of the worst economic situations that Syria has ever been, and it was by far, I would say, in my opinion, one of the worst sanctions imposed by the United States. So like it literally it crushed Syria, and because of that, the regime didn't have money to like support its fighters. It didn't have money to support the militia. It didn't have anything. It was bankrupt pretty much. And so what he did, unfortunately, this law it indirectly caused Bashar al-Assad to resort to the Captagon drug trade, and the Captagon drug trade was so. It was one of the worst, I would say, histories of Syria, unfortunately, because it also later got designated by the United States as a narcotic state. And as a person who used to live in Saudi Arabia, I would also read in the local news every couple of months that the Saudi authorities or the Saudi customs, they busted a drug smuggling attempt that came
Syria.
from Syria, yeah, and it also spread to pretty much the entire Gulf. So you're talking about Jordan, you're talking about
What kind of drugs are we talking about?
Captagon, amphetamine Captagon.
Okay.
That was the most. Actually, it was the most. It was like the primary one, and because of it, the regime was able to amass anywhere from $5 to $50 billion. So like it created a huge wealth, but at the same time, it created a catastrophe to the neighboring countries, and it's one of the worst histories of unfortunately, like it became a narcotic
I've never
state.
knew about this.
It became a narcotic state, and it became very like dangerous to all of the neighboring countries, because you're ruining the population, you're ruining the youth, you're destroying countries. I mean, if you have drugs, then you're pretty much destroying society.
Yeah.
And so Bashar al-Assad was pretty much a threat to the entire world, pretty much because of what happened. And both, I'm sorry, I'm talking
No, it's
too
okay.
much,
No, I'm just
but
it's
both
crazy.
points, the Caesar Act and the drug trade was, in my opinion, the two main reasons that crushed the Assad regime and eventually led to their downfall. Once they had this perfect opportunity where Russia was preoccupied with its war in Ukraine, and Iran and its proxies had its own war and it had its own problems. So Bashar al-Assad was left, without
Powerless.
protection, powerless. Yeah, pretty much.
And just the fact out there to the audience, if they don't know, the Caesar Act actually has just been lifted recently. Like I think a couple weeks ago, it's been voted on by the Senate.
A couple of days ago, it was signed by the U.S.
Yeah, a couple of days
president.
ago.
So
Yep.
alhamdulillah,
Because first of all, alhamdulillah, but they also knew they were about to do this show, so they wanted to make sure that they got that
Yeah,
done
exactly.
for the show.
you're right.
To make that
Exactly. So
announcement.
alhamdulillah, this is great news. Now Syria can breathe, really.
Yeah.
Because U.S. sanctions can literally
Cripple. Yeah.
cripple a nation. You can't do anything
It's
in a
impossible.
nation,
Yeah.
with these sanctions. So
Literally.
alhamdulillah, now they're
Obviously,
off.
alhamdulillah, is great news, but why was it lifted? Like, what was the reasoning behind it?
Well, obviously now because the sanctions that were put in place were due to the crimes and the war crimes of the previous regime.
Okay.
Obviously, the current government has nothing to do with the previous regime. It wouldn't be rational to keep those sanctions on Syria now. And obviously, like the new government, the new president has a lot of good relations with many nations, with the U.S. He was even brought to the White House. And why? The real question is why would they stay?
I'm just you know
Yeah.
how sometimes things don't work the way we think is obvious.
exactly,
I just
yeah.
want to make sure I ask
Exactly,
that.
yeah,
You know what I'm
100%,
saying?
100%.
Because things might make sense, but sometimes
Yeah,
common
the-
sense is not common for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Especially in politics, yeah.
Especially. So now it's 2025.
Yeah.
We're about to end. Actually, it's about to be 2026. This episode might, it's gonna be close to 2026. What challenges is the new Syria facing?
I think throughout the last 60 years, the Assad regime created a lot of disunity, especially among the Syrian people. A lot of ongoing conflicts between the people, and also, as we said, the sanctions, alhamdulillah, they were lifted. So now the country is dealing with a crippled economy, and also a destroyed country with no schools, minimal healthcare, and so the current government is trying to mitigate all of the damage that was done by the Assad regime. And also, alhamdulillah, just yesterday or before yesterday, the Syrian central bank decided to introduce a new Syrian bill that with new reforms that would hopefully improve the economy. And throughout the next couple of days, a couple of weeks, they're going to introduce a new bill that's going to remove the face of Bashar al-Assad and Hafiz al-Assad from like the currency. and replace it with like a new currency that's going to reflect the new identity of Syria.
That's also because of the like huge inflation that happened. I think
Mm.
a dollar is like what
11,000.
11,000
Yeah.
lira or like
Yeah,
13,000,
about,
something
yeah.
like that. So obviously they need a
All-time
new
low.
bill to fix that issue.
Mm.
Because when I went back to Syria in the summer, people have to literally carry like a whole like duffel bag with money, with cash, to go like to the grocery store or grab some some things
Mm.
from the store real quick, because you had to carry so much money because of the low value.
Mm.
And I want to mention also some of the biggest challenges that the new government has been facing is the obviously we mentioned it earlier, with the transfer of power in any government comes chaos. And chaos, sometimes it's planned, sometimes it's not. But we saw a lot of conflicts in the western coast of Syria. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about that in the Sahel, in Latqiya and Tartus. So it kind of started with like remnants of the regime that wanted to take up arms, fight the government, take back some control, gain some power. Realistically, we all knew they really couldn't do much, but it's kind of like there's always these small groups, small militias that want to cause fitna, with while the government is trying to fix things, trying to get back on its feet. And there are just those people who don't want to see that happen. So obviously, because of that, a lot of bad things happened on both sides, I want to say. A lot of people had so much hatred in their heart towards those people, like the
Vengeance.
regime. They wanted vengeance. So they've been dealing, obviously, for like 50 years. They've been dealing with oppression. They've been dealing with deaths, torture, losing loved ones. So those individuals in the government, like did horrible things, and obviously those can't be justified.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they are, but there was a lot of conflict on both sides. And in these cases, I do feel like in a transfer of government that's been going on for 50, 60 years, right? What do you expect from the government? What do you expect from the new intermittent government? You expect to de-escalation, first of all. You want to de-escalate, and we saw that that's what the government did. They tried to separate, they tried to de-escalate, not cause any more violence, not cause any more massacres. And so the people that did commit these things, they were trialed, obviously disarmed, um, uh, they were deferred from the government, you know. And so that's what you expect, and I feel like that's a way to deal with it, close to ideal. You know, you can't always expect. A lot of people try to like try to point out these small things that's been happening. Obviously there's a million better things that's been happening since the government for a year. It's only been a year, obviously.
They did a lot within a year.
Exactly, they did a lot, but the small things that did have the small bad things, the small mishaps, a lot of people who are against the government or whatever would try to highlight them so much. But I feel like the government has been dealing with it in a way where that's the only way you can deal with it. You can't prevent it. Well, and also I want to mention a few individuals, obviously, in any government, any demographic, in any party, a few individuals doing something don't
Represent the whole.
represent or define the whole government or the whole entire population. So that's one of the huge challenges that's been facing. Obviously, a lot of neighboring conflicts, like obviously with Israel, with the Golan Heights, Israel, we saw like they're trying to creep in a bit more, expand their borders a bit, even going past our borders and going into different villages and trying to like, I don't know, state their dominance. They even like we saw them firing and bombing some weapon factories or something. So everything put together, and obviously there's even populations in Syria, a small demographic who are Syrians but are being allied with Israel, and they are trying to fight the government. There's also a different demographic in the northeast. So you can't expect too much of it. You can't expect absolute control, dominance within only a year over all these different militias, all these different proxies, and militaries who are, trying their best to take some control or some power. Because obviously, like we mentioned before, with the transfer of power, with a new government, there comes chaos, there comes a power vacuum. Every little person, every little party wants something. And so I think, in my personal opinion, the government has been doing more than a great job of,
Yeah.
trying to control things, slow it down, de-escalate, and not get into
Mhm.
too many problems and fights and confrontations.
Love that.
I-
So go ahead. You want to add on to that?
I just want to add some facts to it.
Yeah.
A lot of people, unfortunately, they think that the current government wanted to do that on purpose. And actually, according to the UN Commission of Inquiry, they released a report in March of 2025, which coincided with the same time when the coastal incident happened. And they also found out that the remnants, which were funded by Rami Makhlouf, if you remember, who was the cousin of Bashar al-Assad. So he was the one who wanted this insurgency. He wanted to overthrow this current government. And so what the government wanted to do was just to subdue that group. That's all they wanted to do. But what happened is that they ambushed them and they started killing them. And they killed military officials, like the people who just wanted to subdue this insurgency.
Yeah.
They killed them and they created this ambush, and then it created a retaliatory response from the military. And as Abdulhamid said, there were some mistakes from both ends, but this report from the UN shows that the government only wanted to subdue this insurgency. It wasn't like anything sectarian, as a lot of people claim. It wasn't something that was intentional. All they wanted to do was to create a unified Syria, whereas the people or the remnants of the regime wanted the absolute opposite of it.
Listen, hey, shout out to Abdulhamid and Abdulaziz, two well-spoken young individuals, man. These guys, mashallah, Allah Mubarak. You guys do a great job.
Sorry, I just wanted to add one more thing. Is that to add on to the Israeli strikes that are happening in Syria, is that they even bombed central Damascus. Like we have a huge square called Sahat al-Umayyin, which is like it's like a historical site in Syria, and they have like a military building over there, and they bombed it. So like a lot of people also try to claim that the current government is like an Israeli puppet, or like they just wanted to they're just like a puppet or like a means to an end, whereas that's not the case. I mean, more than like hundreds of incursions have happened in south of Syria by the Israelis. So the Syrian government isn't a puppet, and in fact it's trying its best to unify Syria with whatever means it has, even though they're little, they're not that much, but they're doing everything they can. And as Abdulhamid said, like when you see an interim government like that, and you see a population that was under oppression for 60 years, you really can't expect it to be perfect. I mean, you can't expect them to like have this magic wand that suddenly makes all of different all of the conflicts, all of the disunity happen. You can't make that disappear. And even though like we have a lot of conflicts, within 1 year they did a great job.
Yeah.
Like a lot of accomplishments were made within just 1 year.
Well, listen, we're about to, believe it or not, move into the last third of the show. We're going to be talking about how, now Syria is kind of being diplomatically, accepted, welcome back in the Arab community, and, kind of talk about how Syria can continue to move forward from the past regimes. But before we do that, let's give the last shout out to our final sponsor, and let's give a shout out to Chillbox, Yusuf, and then we are going to move into the last third of the show. Shout out to Chillbox. Chillbox. Chillbox Convenience Stores, a proud family-owned business, has established a strong presence throughout Southeast Michigan. Chillbox branded gas partners are Valero, Shell, BP, Amoco, and Sunoco gas stations. Their mission is simple: to deliver fast, friendly, and convenient service to their valued customers. With a wide range of snacks, refreshing beverages, and food options, all offered at competitive prices, they aim to satisfy every craving with a smile. With 40 locations and more coming soon, all across Southeast Michigan, their commitment extends beyond providing convenience. They strive to be a reliable and trustworthy resource for their local communities. So be sure to go chill at Chillbox. All right, so Syria, used to people, so much things going on. Let's stay away from it, right?
Yeah.
Don't want to deal with it.
Unfortunately.
Now, All right, welcome back to the Middle East, right? The Arab world.
exactly.
That's kind of what the mindset is right now. So, yeah, I guess we could combine these next two questions. Is how did Syria go from being a diplomatically isolated state of being welcomed back by the Arab and international community within months? And I know you kind of touched on this, but why are so many parties interested in Syria?
Ooh. So let's go back a little bit
Okay.
in time. Ever since 1963, when that Ba'ath coup happened, Syria sided, you can say, with the Eastern allies. So like North Korea, Russia, China, the communist powers. That's been always the case. The army had like Russian weapons. So like historically speaking, Syria has always leaned towards that communist side. And now after the liberation, we're seeing this shift more towards democratic countries, more towards Western countries, and that created a huge dynamic. Like it's genuinely unprecedented to see a country that was so isolated, that was absolutely crushed by like crippling sanctions. Everyone wanted to avoid Syria, as you said, like just stay away from Syria. It was such a marginalized country. No one really heard much about it throughout like the past couple of years. But now within 1 year, you're seeing Donald Trump, the American president, meeting multiple times with the Syrian president, inviting him to the White House, exchanging gifts with him. So, like, the welcoming that we're seeing from Syria is very promising, and it makes us so happy. Because, again, historically speaking, Syria is such a strategic and important part of the world. It's literally nicknamed the heart of the world, because it truly is. Like, if you want to have a prosperous Middle East, if you want to have a prosperous region, then the key to that is Syria. If you have the key to Syria, you have the key to the Middle East. And if you have a prosperous Syria, you have a prosperous region.
Yeah.
And we're seeing this shift where the United States wants to have a peaceful Middle East. And they saw this opportunity to side with Syria, and Syria also wanted to side with the U.S. And again, Syria is now a peaceful country. We just want to have good relationships with everyone. We want to rebuild our country. We don't want conflicts with anyone, and we've said that loud and clear. We're not here to like cause any problems, cause any instability. And uh, you know, thanks to the Syrian government, those past 12 months, they've done an incredible job, diplomatically speaking. So like they started doing relationships with like a lot of countries. So like who does like Croatia, for example. Like who would have thought, you know? Just a couple of days ago, they also resumed their diplomatic relationships with Japan. They resumed it with the European Union. They had the European Union lift their sanctions. Throughout the past 12 months, they've worked tirelessly to convince Congress, convince the House of Representatives, convince the Senate to lift those sanctions. And in fact, I was working with Reem a couple of months ago where we drafted congressional letters to senators all across the United States, for people, for constituents in all the different states to send those letters to their respective senators so that they get convinced to vote against or vote for the repealing of the sanctions. And alhamdulillah, all of this, it came to fruition a couple of days ago, and it was signed through the NDAA by Donald Trump. And alhamdulillah, the diplomatic relationships are amazing because those diplomatic relationships, one way or another, they will benefit the average Syrian citizen. Like, if we were
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was gonna do a breaking news, but go ahead. We'll continue.
for the past 60 years, all we were talking about, unfortunately, was one government overthrowing the other. One person wanted to raise to power. One person having so much greed, he just wanted power. We never really heard anything about the people. Like the people have been always the last people to ever been talked about. But now, alhamdulillah, with all the relationships restored, the average Syrian citizen can now see the difference. Because of those different like diplomatic relationships, alhamdulillah, the electricity has been improved significantly. In the past, you'd only get like electricity for just a couple of hours. Now, you'd have it like 2 full days, 3 full days, which isn't a lot, right? But compared to what we had in the past, those are huge steps, huge achievements. And so we're seeing this acceptance, this international acceptance, especially from Gulf countries. So as I said, I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia, and now alhamdulillah, there's a very close knit relationship between Saudi Arabia and between Syria, and now Syria has $28 billion in investments waiting for it to be fully implemented with the uplifting of the sanctions. So with those investments in our hands, it will create jobs, it will create investments, it will ultimately benefit the life of the average Syrian citizen. So, alhamdulillah, we are very optimistic for this upcoming year. and we're so happy, we're so ecstatic to see this welcoming by the international community because of its geographic location. It connects Europe, it connects Europe with the Middle East, and it connects it with Africa as well. So like Syria has a very strategic place in the world, and also the Syrian people are loved. A lot of people love the Syrian culture. They love the Syrian people, so they value its history.
Mm-hmm.
And once they saw that it's a stable country, it's not a narcotic state, it's not an aggressive state. Why wouldn't you want to have diplomatic
Yeah.
relationship
Now,
with such
now that
countries?
Syria is a new government, it's a
Mm.
new thing. It's been cleansed from the old oppressive regime. Like Abdulaziz mentioned, like right now it's open ground for investment.
Mhm.
So like, imagine a country in the middle of the Middle East, in the middle of the world, pretty much. That's one of the only countries right now in the Middle East. Actually, like there's conflicts in Lebanon, conflicts in Iraq, Palestine, obviously. Now Syria, it's like a new, fresh thing, and it gives an opportunity for especially like Gulf countries. They would love to invest, obviously. So Saudi Arabia, Qatar, um, they are putting so much of their investment, so much money into Syria, not only to rebuild it, but also like ultimately it will give them back some benefits, obviously. Great resources, great geographical location, geopolitical, and um, not to say that this is the only reason these countries are doing it. Like these neighboring Gulf countries, um, these Arab and Muslim countries, they really do, I think, want to see Syria come back to what it was, get back up on its feet. They want to see those 14 million, 15 million people that were displaced to come back to their homes. And unfortunately, they really can't right now. A lot of people are coming back to rubble. Their homes are destroyed, entire villages are
Wiped out.
flattened. So they do want to see that, and I believe they do want to see that rebuilding. They want to see those people come back, see their homes, meet their families, and I believe like that's truly the main factor pushing for this. A lot of relations, a lot of investment in Syria.
I also want to add that because Syria is so unfortunately destroyed, it's like a brazen land. So like whatever you plant in it, you're gonna see the results of it. And so a lot of major reconstruction companies want to enter Syria because, as Abdulhamid said, we want to re-welcome all of those displaced people. And unfortunately, we still have 3 million people living in camps and in tents. So with now the new year coming and the sanctions uplifted, we're waiting to like see, inshallah, great results. And also, I want to add that Syria has great resources from like phosphate reservoirs, oil reservoirs found in the northeast, and also we have a huge fish population in the coastal areas. And Syria, in fact, back in the day, it used to be self-sufficient. It's like it was able to like feed itself for a couple of years straight without ever needing to get food from anyone else. So like, and it's also a very fertile land. So Syria has a lot of resources.
Yeah.
Like if Syria were to come back on its feet, a lot of people predict Syria to become the next what they call Berlin of the Middle East. So inshallah, we're very optimistic, wallah.
Inshallah.
First of all, let me just do this. Can we get an air horn, Yusuf, for breaking news, okay? All right. From what I heard is that the leaders of SOS were a major factor of the sanctions being lifted. So shout out to you guys. Can you go ahead and give them a round of applause, all right? At least that's what I heard, all right? Everybody hears differently, but that's what I heard. So I just want to let you know. And I love the tone of your voices, how positive and how optimistic you guys are. It sounds great. Inshallah, this goes on for every single country that's going through war in the Middle East right now. And there's so much stuff going on. And that relief in your voices, it sounds like that you guys are so excited for inshallah what's to come for Syria.
100%.
And it seems like long time coming, obviously.
Yeah.
Man, it's something that
60
for
years.
your family's generations probably never had,
Mhm.
you never witnessed, I guess, firsthand. So inshallah, this is something that it can move forward from, and this is something that can continue for everybody in that region. And I'm very happy for you guys. The way that you're talking about it is, it's like finally, it's almost like that page has been turned.
Yeah.
And so, it's a clean slate. It's like
Yeah,
literally a clean
absolutely.
slate. And I see why a lot of these neighboring countries, of course, that's how it is, right? When you start looking good, everybody want to
Right.
get a piece of it.
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? When you're going through the struggle, everybody want to,
But at least it's benefiting the average citizen.
it is.
Yeah.
And that's
the-
all we care about.
You know what's so funny? I swear, when you're talking about this, I know you remember, like, because like I said, I work for Hamtramck. There's been so much drama going on. As you're talking, like, there's so much eerie similarities of just the small city of like how like all this drama. The people that are losing the most is the citizens, the actual individuals.
Yeah,
Like, nobody
yeah.
talks
They're the
about that either.
people that are overlooked the most.
Nobody is talking about that, and then that's what bothers me sometimes. It's like, are we losing focus on what's going on?
Are
here?
we
And I'm
working
sure-
for them?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm sure that's exactly what was going on in Syria these last 60 years. So, I guess this is the part of like, how can we be a part of Syria's future and development? Like, how, when I say we, I mean us. Like, how can us people, this people that might be thousands of miles away, help and assist with what we can with Syria and what's going on in Syria?
So first of all, I want to say like a huge example is what you're doing
Yeah.
right now, and I want to
So thank
really
you.
thank you for having us here.
Yes, anytime.
A podcast like this, bringing us on to a show, giving us the opportunity to explain to the people, debunk some rumors, throw away some conspiracy theories, whatever, like, dumb stuff that don't matter, that only cause fitna, that only cause chaos. We want to be able to have like a platform like this. We really do thank you and appreciate for having us on here, because this is a huge opportunity and chance for us to, send out a message, explain what's happening, educate people. A lot of people just, act and talk based off of what they see, like one reel or
Right.
like a short clip that they see on TikTok or something, And I think real deep education is necessary.
Mhm.
That's number one. Number two, we really have to focus on rebuilding. Now that the I don't want to say hard part or easy part, whatever, but now that the regime is gone, we really have to work just as hard, if not harder, to rebuild, to bring back the economy to how it was. And a huge way that we can support this, us here in the US. Obviously, we're not on the ground there, actively putting, bricks together, but like philanthropy, for example, donations. And us, like even small student organizations like us at Student Organized for Syria, SOS, at U of M Dearborn, for example, just like, for example, like a charity iftar every Ramadan helps a lot. We send that money, and there's a lot of chapters all over the state. Like there's one in Wayne State, Michigan State, Ann
Eastern.
Arbor, Eastern Michigan. A lot of those small like student organizations really can make a difference, and
Especially with our support of them.
100%. And then it's really, at the end of the day, it's help from the community.
Yeah.
We can host an iftar, we can host an event, a charity event, whatever, but if the community doesn't show up, where's the money coming from? If the community, if like non-Syrians even, because to be fair, that's not the majority. For example, in Dearborn or in Michigan in general, Syrians are not the majority Arab population in here, obviously. And so we really do need that support from different demographics. We need that support from the Arabs. We need that support from the Muslims. And sometimes I know people have their differences. I know people have their opinions on the leaders, the governments, whatever. But at the end of the day, we need to put those differences aside. We need to focus, like you said earlier, the people. Who are we really trying to help, right? Like we're trying to get back those 14 million people that were displaced back to their homes, rebuild their homes. We're trying to, obviously we can't bring people back, but the million lives that were lost in this whole war over 14 years, 15 years.
More than 1 million were killed.
Yeah, exactly. This is what we really need to focus on. And it's just so like ridiculous, and it's so insensitive for us Syrians, for example, to work so hard towards that, to try so hard to do our best to help or do something, give back, send people back to their countries, have people see their families. For someone else that's not even Syrian, that's not even like part of anything, to just tell me, oh, like you're so happy about this, obviously your president is like a Mossad agent or Israeli puppet.
Oh, he's
like,
a puppet, yeah.
this is not like, that's so the person you're
Disingenuous.
talking to, the person you're sitting next to, may have had multiple family members who have passed away, may have been bombed themselves. I experienced a barrel bomb being dropped on the house I was staying at, like when I was a kid. People have lost their childhoods. People have lost their whole entire lives. Family members, loved ones. They had loved ones who have never even seen them. They don't.
Mhm.
Some people to this day don't even know if their family members are alive or not for multiple years.
We
You know.
have 250,000 missing people until this very day.
Yeah, exactly. So we have to really focus on the main subject that we have
Mhm.
right now, right? And again, that's when we do charities, donations, really working hard to debunk these rumors and theories and conspiracy theories and whatnot. And I really appreciate our community. We have a very amazing community here in Dearborn specifically, that really do support. A lot of people love to see, good things happen for our people. And I want to mention one thing also, like a lot of people for 14 years have been displaced and had family members in Syria still, right? And I can give you an example. I actually went back to Syria this last summer after the liberation, and I was able to see my uncles, my grandmas, my cousins who I've never even met before, after 12 years, 13 years, you know? So, like, being able to experience that is really what's important, And a lot of people even like had family members pass away and while they're here or like in Europe or somewhere in Turkey, and they couldn't even go you know to the funeral. They couldn't even see their parents, see their grandparents before they passed away. And so we have to keep that in mind. Like we have to kind of like be sensitive towards those people. Um,
A great way. Can you give him a round of applause? That was a great way of
Thank
breaking it down. And I want to go back to what you were saying too, Abdulaziz, about Syrian people. You guys are, I don't like. You guys are easy to like and love. I'm not gonna lie to you. I feel like you guys
Thank
have
you.
big hearts.
Thank you.
I think you guys, represent the Arab really well. And strong-willed. Yemeni. You could say we fall into those categories, but I think we're loud. And some people don't like loud. You know what I mean?
see.
And I feel like Yemeni. I love being Yemeni. I love every part of it. I'm just saying. I'm just sharing my outside perspective view of how I view Syrians, and I feel like you guys are all very, well mannered.
Thank you.
Not saying that we aren't Yemeni people aren't. I'm just saying I feel like overall stereotype is Yemeni people. You see them screaming in videos. You know what I'm saying? AKs in the hands, like
Right.
Syria. They'll handle business, but they do it a different way. But no, easily loved. Like you guys, are very well respected. Like y'all show love to every country. I don't like just focus on Syria. You know what I mean? All the problems that we just learned about, or some people may have just learned about, were always going on, and yeah, you'll see Syrians trying to help in every case, in every scenario. So just want to throw that out there, man. Kudos
Thank
to you
you.
guys,
Appreciate
man.
it.
Appreciate that.
But how can, now from your perspective and from your end, how can people help with this new Syria that's, inshallah, that's going to be coming forward?
So, I would say, diplomatically speaking, just supporting the country. As Abdulhamid said, unfortunately, we've had a lot of backlash. And in SOS, I'm the education chair, so I usually advocate for like understanding the history, understanding what happened throughout the 60 years in Syria. And one beautiful saying is that the people who experienced war appreciate peace the most. And so we've experienced war throughout 60 years. We've been tortured, we've been killed, we've been hunted down, everything you can think of. And so all of that created this new perspective within us. And because of it, we understand peace. We understand how important it is. And that's all we care about right now. We just want to rebuild. We want our country to prosper again. And we encourage everyone to understand what happened in Syria, like what happened those past 60 years. Because I think, in my opinion, it's a bit disingenuous when you look at like small conflicts that happened throughout like the past year, and then say or like blame the Syrian people for wanting dignity or wanting a new government or wanting just simple reforms. Because at the end of the day, all we asked for was just freedom. Like that's all we said, حرية. That's what all we ever asked for, dignity, rights. We just wanted to be treated as human beings, just as the rest of the world.
That's what
And
it was always about.
that's what it was always
It
about.
was never
And
about
it was
conflict. It was never about
exactly
power.
exactly like all we wanted was just simple, basic human rights. And unfortunately, we were met with extreme violence. We've had more than 300 documented chemical attacks. More than 10 million people were wanted by the Syrian intelligence. So like we've been through hell and back. And so because of all of this, we know how important peace is. And because of this is why the Syrian government now has said loud and clear, We don't want problems. We want peace with everyone. Syria is a peaceful country. We want our people to become educated. We want our people to bring all of their expertise back to Syria, because right now more than 9 million Syrians are dual nationals. So all of those people have like insane experience with them. They're bilingual, they're trilingual. They've all learned and studied in like the best universities in the world. And so all of them, when they come back to Syria, and when you have all of the different countries supporting them, then you're creating amazing opportunities for the Syrian people. And again, the Syrian people have created great relationships with all of its surrounding, whether it be Turkey. They also wanted to create good relationships with Lebanon. The Syrian president has explicitly said that we want a great relationship with Lebanon. We want great relationship with Saudi Arabia. We want great relationship with the UAE.
He's even met with Putin,
Yeah, with Putin
which
too.
obviously,
Like,
as we explained before, was a
like-
huge ally to Bashar.
Yeah.
and he said that as long as there are mutual benefits and as long as the Syrian people are benefiting, that's all we care about. We just want peace. We want to rebuild our country, and we want to live as dignified people with basic human rights. That was all what the Syrian revolution was ever about.
I love that, man. I love that. Again, can you give him Abdulaziz a round of applause as well? You guys, if I were your professor, A plus. All right,
Thank you.
A plus. So we're reaching that point where it's final word time, final comments. But before I give you guys the opportunity to give y'all final word and final comments, I just want to tell people, first of all, today's topic was all about 1 year later, what really happened to Syria after Assad fell. This was talking about the history of Syria, the current state of Syria, and inshallah the future of Syria. And so that's kind of what we wanted to talk about. This was actually scheduled for the 1 year anniversary, but things happened. We had to move this actual show. But again, I just want to tell you that you can watch this full episode on YouTube or also on our Apple and Spotify pages on Oz Media. And then you'll find clips on Instagram, TikTok, and we have it on YouTube as well. You'll find the clips of this episode, inshallah, under Oz Media. You can find all those platforms on our website, ozmedia313.com. One last time, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors: Juice Box, Holy Bowly, Wing Fellas, Bates and Mocha, Chill Box, Malika Kebab, Hanley International Academy, The Family Doc, GE Preparatory Academy, and Royal Kebab. Abdulhamid, I'll start off with you. Any final words, final comments, maybe something that I have missed that I didn't ask about?
To be honest, I feel like you've given us a very amazing opportunity to sit down, educate. This is what it was all about. Trying to say what people need to hear. And obviously, I want to thank you so much, Omar, for having us and Oz Media in general. But again, I just want there's a lot of like sectarian issues when it comes to and it's a very sensitive topic.
I was gonna say, man, when you say the word Syria for a good couple of months there, it was like, which way you going in this conversation? Because it was very sensitive,
100%.
man. And I'm like, my goodness,
100%.
man.
And
You just say Syria, just this war starts happening. In the comment
100%.
section.
And obviously we've seen like a lot of and I want to say this is the minority. These are like the few individuals who really want to see chaos. They don't want to see peace, who always like comment on Syria. Oh, like the stuff I've mentioned before. I'm not going to talk about it again, but I feel like we just need to ignore this like small minority of people, because not everyone's like that. Not everyone, they don't represent who they are. They don't represent where they come from. Because I know most people do want to see good things happen to this country. They want to see good things happen in the Middle East in general. And none of this is ever about sectarian. None of this is about different religions or whatever. We just want to see a country who's been dealing with war, who's been dealing with oppression, war crimes, an oppressive regime that's been going on for like people think it's only since 2011. It's been since Hafiz, since the 1960s, 1970s. Which is now has just been removed. We just want to see good things happen to this country. We want to see good things happen to the Middle East, inshallah. Good things happen to all the Middle Eastern countries, Syria, Iraq, Palestine, Lebanon. I know there's conflict. The Middle East has almost never saw peace in the past like century or so. So I feel like this is a win for everyone, all Arabs, all Muslims. And again, you doing this is an amazing opportunity, and something that a lot of people can learn from, and giving us this opportunity, knowing the potential backlash, knowing the potential, again, those people who may say some things, but we really appreciate you, and thank you so much for having us. And
I'm gonna say two things. Number one, it definitely feels like a win for everybody. You
Mhm.
know, anytime something like this happens, it's a win. If you don't look at it that way, then you're not part of the right team. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Number two is thank you for coming on here and actually feeling like that this is a platform that you guys can trust to come on
course.
here and say that. Like that is, you guys are thanking me. I'm thanking you. You know, and of course we should be thanking Allah, because Allah,
Yeah,
without Allah,
that's right.
none of this would be happening. And when people ask me, why do you do this? It's for moments like this right here. I promise you guys, like, the fun is fun. The conversations that we have, that, some of the clips that might go viral, that's great. But when you talk about community topics, people that feel comfortable coming in here and sharing what's going on, very sensitive topics too, by the way. Y- Alhamdulillah for everything, right? That's what
Alhamdulillah.
you got to say to that. So I appreciate you guys for coming here. And I know we kind of
Having
just
us.
we kind of just took all your shine for saying what you had to say, man. We kind of just
No, it's fine.
kind of, but go ahead, final word for you.
All I want to say is I just want to look at the camera and say, with the greatest amount of joy and excitement, Suriya Hurra.
Mm.
Suriya Hurra, which is something that we've always wanted to say, something that we've always longed for. Because unfortunately, I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia. So I look at myself and I say, I'm only Syrian by name. I'm only Syrian because my parents are Syrian and they speak Syrian, and so I speak Syrian. But I don't know what is Syria. I don't know what it feels like to walk down the streets of Hama, what it feels like to walk down the streets of Dimashq. We've never experienced that. And so now, alhamdulillah, we have this opportunity. And so I think as Syrian people, we need to seize this once in a lifetime opportunity and just grasp to it with as if our life depends on it. This is something that doesn't always come. We have to capitalize on it. We have to use it, and we have to use it to our advantage. And again, we just want peace. We just want to rebuild our country, make our country great again, and we love Syria.
Hey,
We love it.
Suriya Hurra. Give that a round of applause, man. That's the line of
Yep.
today. Abdulhamid, Abdulaziz, thank you for coming on. We appreciate you guys
Thank
again.
you for having us.
Of course, anytime you need us, we're here, inshallah.
Thank
Hope
you.
at home that you learned something new. Again, this was season 5, episode 16 of Oz Media's Motivate Me 313 podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. And inshallah, we hope that you learned something and continue to support the freedom of Syria in the future as well. Thank you for watching, and we will see you all next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.